Ladies and gentlemen, let us gather our attention, not merely to be stirred emotionally, but to be transformed mentally. There is a lie that many carry, often quietly beneath their confidence and goals, the belief that mistakes are to be avoided at all costs. But the truth, powerful and liberating, is this: mistakes are not signs of failure, they are signs of forward movement. Mistakes are proof of effort. This simple statement carries profound truth. Often, in the pursuit of excellence or purpose, we fear making mistakes because we associate them with failure, shame, or incompetence. But this mindset limits potential and paralyzes progress. In reality, mistakes are not enemies to be avoided. They are signs that we are trying, that we are moving, that we are stepping out of comfort and into challenge. When a child learns to walk, they fall countless times. Yet, no one calls those falls failures. Instead, we applaud the effort, encourage them to rise again, and celebrate each attempt as progress. Why then, as adults, do we punish ourselves so harshly for making mistakes? The process of becoming, learning, and developing demands missteps. It is through trial and error that we refine skills, sharpen wisdom, and build resilience. Every mistake begins with effort, an action taken, a risk embraced, a decision made. Those who never make mistakes are often those who never take risks. They stay in the shadows of certainty, never daring to stretch into the unknown. But growth doesn't dwell in the comfort zone. It lives on the edge of risk, where mistakes are frequent, but so are breakthroughs. Mistakes are the evidence that you are engaged in life. They prove that you are not simply existing, but actively participating. In the workplace, in relationships, in personal dreams, those who attempt more fail more. But they also grow more. They learn quicker. They develop the muscle of resilience. The person who fails 100 times but learns from each attempt will outpace the person who never tries at all. There is a certain kind of character that is only formed when effort meets resistance. Mistakes are that resistance. They reveal gaps in understanding, errors in judgment, or weaknesses in strategy. But in revealing these things, they offer the opportunity to improve. You can only correct what you attempt. You can only build wisdom through the experience of imperfection. In truth, mistakes humble us. They remind us that we are still learning, still evolving, and still becoming. And that humility is the very soil in which wisdom grows. Without mistakes, we would become proud of untested knowledge. But through failure, we come face to face with our limits, and more importantly, with our potential to rise beyond them. So instead of fearing mistakes, embrace them as part of your journey. Let them testify that you are committed to moving forward, even if imperfectly. Every great inventor, leader, teacher, and builder has a trail of mistakes behind their achievements. Their legacy was not born of flawlessness, but of relentless effort. The same is true for you. Your mistakes are not the end of your story. They are signs that your story is still being written with effort, with courage, and with growth in every chapter. Every mistake contains a lesson. At first, mistakes may appear as setbacks, embarrassments, or even personal defeats. But if we are willing to look deeper, beyond the sting of failure, we will find that within every misstep lies an invitation to grow. Mistakes are not simply events to recover from. They are messages waiting to be read, teachers waiting to instruct, and opportunities disguised as problems. Too often, people miss the value of their mistakes because they rush to forget them. They sweep them under the rug, bury them in silence, or deny them altogether out of fear, pride, or shame. But this avoidance turns a moment of potential growth into a cycle of repeated errors. Unlearned lessons return again and again, often in louder and more painful forms, until we finally stop to listen. The most successful people in any field, from science and business to sports and ministry, have one thing in common: they learn quickly from their mistakes. They pause to reflect. They ask the hard questions: what went wrong? What did I miss? What can I do differently next time? Through honest evaluation, mistakes become sources of clarity and wisdom. Think of mistakes as mirrors. They reflect where we are weak, where we are uninformed, or where we have made decisions without enough thought. but they also shine a light on the path forward. A failed business venture can teach an entrepreneur about timing, resource management, or leadership gaps. A broken relationship can reveal patterns of communication or personal immaturity that need attention. A poor grade can highlight the need for better time management or study habits. In each case, the mistake is a messenger. It brings a valuable report about who we are and what we must improve. But for a mistake to teach us, we must listen with humility. Pride resists correction. It wants to be right more than it wants to be wise. But wisdom only grows in the soil of humility. It takes strength to admit when we've been wrong. It takes maturity to say, I didn't handle that well, or I didn't know enough, or I was careless. But in these moments of honest self-assessment, growth begins. The danger is not in making mistakes. The danger is in ignoring them. When we treat mistakes as final or fatal, we cut ourselves off from their hidden purpose. But when we receive them as necessary steps in our journey, we turn them into stepping stones rather than stumbling blocks. The truth is, we will all make mistakes, many of them. But the question is, will we learn from them? Will we allow each one to refine our thinking, strengthen our character, and direct our future decisions? If you're willing to treat your mistakes as classrooms rather than prisons, your growth will be exponential. Every wrong turn, every poor choice, and every regret can become a valuable tutor if you're willing to learn. Reflection turns experience into insight. Without reflection, even the most intense experiences, whether painful failures or great successes, remain shallow. Reflection is the discipline of looking inward, analyzing outward events with inner clarity. It is how we process, interpret, and extract meaning from the things that happen to us. Mistakes by themselves do not guarantee growth. It is only when we pause, think, and ask questions that the true value of a mistake is unlocked. In many lives, mistakes are repeated not because of a lack of intelligence, but because of a lack of reflection. People go through cycles, reliving the same patterns in relationships, decisions, and behaviors. They wonder why nothing changes, why progress seems elusive. The answer is simple. Experience without reflection is just repetition. Doing something wrong over and over without learning why it went wrong is not growth. It's stagnation. Reflection is the bridge between failure and wisdom. It slows you down long enough to turn chaos into clarity. It is in reflection that you ask, what happened? Why did it happen? What part did I play in this? What can I do differently next time? These questions are not about blame. They are about responsibility. Responsibility empowers. It gives you control over your future decisions. It is also in reflection that emotional healing begins. Mistakes often carry emotional weight, shame, guilt, regret. These feelings, if left unattended, can become heavy burdens. But when you reflect with honesty and compassion toward yourself, you begin to separate who you are from what you did. You begin to see the situation for what it was, a moment in time, not a life sentence. You can grieve the failure while still gathering the lesson. One of the most effective ways to reflect is to journal. Writing forces clarity. It demands that your thoughts become words and your emotions become sentences. In the process, hidden insights emerge. You begin to notice patterns in your thinking, decisions, and behavior. Over time, this builds a self-awareness that becomes a guiding compass for your life. Reflection also protects you from future harm. When you truly understand why something went wrong, you are far less likely to fall into the same trap again. Your awareness becomes a shield. You become more deliberate, more thoughtful, and more strategic in your actions. Reflection turns hindsight into foresight. But reflection is not a one-time event. It is a habit. A person who reflects regularly is constantly evolving. They are not afraid of mistakes because they know how to extract wisdom from them. They become wise not because they know everything, but because they learn from everything. Ultimately, reflection is how we convert raw experiences into refined understanding. It is how we become architects of our future rather than victims of our past. The mind that reflects is the mind that grows. It does not rush past pain. It studies it. It does not run from failure. It mines it for gold. Mistakes shape character in ways that success alone cannot. When we face failure, discomfort, or disappointment, we are confronted not only with external challenges, but also with an internal test of who we really are. It is in these moments of struggle that the qualities of integrity, resilience, patience, and humility are forged. Qualities that define not just what we do, but who we become. Character is often understood as the sum of our values, beliefs, and behaviors, but it is more deeply the reflection of how we respond when things go wrong. Success can be easy to wear when everything is smooth and circumstances favor us. But character reveals itself in the storms, when the easy path disappears and we must decide whether to give up, blame others, or rise above the situation. Mistakes place us in that crucible where real character is tested and developed. When you make a mistake, you face a choice. You can either let it define you negatively, allowing shame, denial, or anger to take root, or you can allow it to teach you and strengthen your spirit. Choosing the latter builds resilience, the inner strength to keep moving forward even when faced with setbacks. This resilience is a core component of character because it shows a commitment to growth and purpose beyond momentary failure. Integrity also grows through mistakes. Integrity means being honest with yourself and others about your shortcomings and failures rather than hiding or excusing them. It takes courage to admit a mistake openly, especially in a world that often rewards perfection. But owning your errors and seeking to correct them builds trust and respect from others. And more importantly, it builds self-respect. This honesty is a cornerstone of true character. Mistakes also cultivate patience. Growth rarely happens overnight, and the road to success is rarely straight. When mistakes slow us down or force us to start again, patience is what keeps us steady. It helps us understand that progress is a process, not an event, and that setbacks are part of the journey, not the end of it. Moreover, mistakes humble us. They remind us that we are human, imperfect, fallible, and in need of learning. This humility opens the door to greater wisdom because it allows us to accept guidance, correction, and new ideas. Without humility, character becomes brittle and prideful. With humility, it becomes flexible and wise. In the end, mistakes are not just disruptions. They are the very material from which character is built. They shape how we think, how we respond, and how we grow. They teach us perseverance when we want to quit, honesty when we want to hide, and patience when we want immediate results. They carve into our lives the deeper qualities that success alone cannot create. The person who embraces mistakes as character, building experiences, becomes a person of strength, depth, and influence. They stand firm in the face of adversity, lead with authenticity, and inspire others not because they never fail, but because they never stop growing. Purpose is refined in mistakes. When we think about our life's calling or mission, it's easy to imagine that purpose is a clear, fixed destination, a place we simply arrive at once and for all. But the reality is far richer and more dynamic. Purpose is a journey, and mistakes along the way act as vital signposts that guide us, sharpen our vision, and clarify the path ahead. Without mistakes, purpose can remain vague, untested, or misunderstood. Mistakes strip away illusion and force us to confront reality. Sometimes we begin on a path that feels exciting or promising, only to discover through failure that it doesn't align with our true gifts, passions, or values. These disappointments are not just setbacks, they are course corrections. They push us to rethink our goals, ask deeper questions about what truly matters, and refine our sense of calling. In this way, mistakes help separate what is convenient or expected from what is authentic and meaningful. Purpose requires clarity, and clarity often emerges through trial and error. As we make mistakes, we learn what works and what doesn't. We learn which efforts produce fruit and which drain our energy without reward. This process is essential because purpose is not just about what we want to do, but what we are uniquely equipped to do well and sustainably. Mistakes help us discover our strengths, weaknesses, and the areas where we need growth or support. Moreover, mistakes build resilience and perseverance, qualities necessary to pursue purpose in a world that rarely offers a smooth road. Purpose is rarely a straight line. It twists, turns, and sometimes leads us into difficult terrain. Without the hard lessons learned from mistakes, it's easy to become discouraged or give up. But when we embrace mistakes as part of the refining fire, we develop the grit and determination to keep moving forward despite challenges. Mistakes also expand our perspective and empathy. When we stumble, we gain a deeper understanding of struggle, failure, and human limitation. This empathy enriches our purpose by allowing us to connect more genuinely with others and to serve from a place of humility and compassion. Purpose refined through mistakes becomes not just about personal achievement, but about meaningful contribution and impact. Finally, mistakes teach patience. Purpose is a process of unfolding, not an instant revelation. It often requires long seasons of growth, learning, and adjustment. When mistakes happen, patience keeps us from despair or frustration. It helps us to trust the process and stay committed even when progress feels slow or uncertain. In summary, mistakes are essential tools for refining purpose. They bring clarity by revealing what is real and what is not, build character by teaching resilience, deepen connection through empathy, and foster patience for the long journey. Rather than detracting from your mission, mistakes are invitations to sharpen it, making your purpose not only clearer but stronger, more authentic, and more impactful. Avoid shame, embrace responsibility. This principle is a cornerstone of personal growth and transformation. When we make mistakes, the initial reaction for many is to feel ashamed, to shrink away from accountability, and to hide the truth, sometimes even from ourselves. Shame tells us we are flawed or unworthy, that our mistakes define our identity. Responsibility, on the other hand, teaches us that mistakes are events, not identities, and that how we respond to them determines our future. Shame is a heavy burden. It isolates, silences, and paralyzes. It breeds fear, the fear of judgment, rejection, or failure, which often leads to denial or defensiveness. When shame controls us, it prevents learning because we are too focused on protecting our ego rather than facing reality. We avoid admitting mistakes, delay making necessary changes, and lose valuable opportunities to grow. In this way, shame keeps us trapped in a cycle of repeated errors and hidden pain. Embracing responsibility breaks that cycle. Responsibility is an act of courage. It requires us to stand firm, look honestly at what happened, and say, this was my part, and now I choose to learn and improve. Responsibility is not about self-condemnation or blame, but about ownership. It places the power back in our hands, because when we accept responsibility, we gain control over how we respond. We move from victimhood to empowerment. Responsibility also builds trust, both within ourselves and in our relationships. When we acknowledge mistakes openly, people see integrity. They know we are accountable and reliable, willing to face consequences and work towards solutions. This openness strengthens bonds and creates environments where learning and improvement are possible. Moreover, responsibility fuels growth. When we take ownership of our errors, we unlock the door to reflection, learning, and change. We can analyze what went wrong, identify areas for development, and make informed decisions moving forward. Without responsibility, mistakes remain vague and unresolved. With it, they become clear lessons that shape wiser choices. It's important to recognize that embracing responsibility does not mean taking all the blame unfairly or allowing others to diminish us. It means discerning where we have influence and control and focusing our energy there. It's about being honest with ourselves about what we did or didn't do without letting shame distort the truth. In practice, shifting from shame to responsibility requires intentional effort. It means changing the internal dialogue from I am a failure to I made a mistake and I can learn from it. It means creating safe spaces to admit faults without fear of harsh judgment. It means fostering self-compassion alongside accountability. When we choose responsibility over shame, we open the path to transformation. We learn to see mistakes as stepping stones, not stumbling blocks. We reclaim our power to grow, adapt, and pursue our highest potential. In this light, mistakes are not threats but invitations, inviting us to greater maturity, wisdom, and freedom. You are not your mistakes. This truth is one of the most liberating realizations a person can embrace on their journey of growth and self-discovery. Mistakes are events that happen, actions taken or decisions made that did not yield the desired outcome. They are parts of experience, but they do not define the essence of who you are. Yet, many people fall into the trap of allowing their mistakes to shape their identity, believing that failing means they are failures. When we confuse mistakes with our identity, we limit our potential and damage our self-worth. We carry unnecessary burdens of guilt, shame, and regret, often replaying past errors in our minds and allowing them to dictate our present feelings and future actions. This misidentification can lead to a sense of helplessness or hopelessness, as if our worth is permanently diminished by what we have done or failed to do. However, mistakes are not permanent marks on our character. They are temporary experiences that provide valuable information. They are like detours on a journey. They might delay us or cause discomfort, but they do not change the destination unless we allow them to. The moment we recognize that mistakes are separate from our core self, we reclaim the power to move forward with courage and hope. Separating your identity from your mistakes also opens the door to forgiveness, both from others and from yourself. Forgiveness is essential for healing and growth because it breaks the cycle of self-condemnation. When you forgive yourself for errors, you release the heavy weight of past failures and create space for new possibilities. This does not mean ignoring responsibility or avoiding lessons. Rather, it means accepting your humanity and embracing the process of learning without being trapped by shame. Moreover, understanding that you are not your mistakes fosters resilience. It enables you to bounce back quicker after setbacks because you do not see failure as a reflection of your value, but as a momentary event from which you can recover. Resilience grows when you view challenges and errors as parts of the journey rather than final judgments on your worth. This mindset also encourages a growth-oriented attitude. When you know your identity is not tied to perfection, you become more willing to take risks, try new things, and stretch beyond comfort zones. You understand that mistakes are not threats but teachers, and that every experience, good or bad, contributes to your development. Furthermore, detaching from mistakes empowers you to live authentically. You are free to be honest about your imperfections, open about your struggles, and genuine in your relationships. This authenticity deepens connections with others because it invites empathy, understanding, and mutual growth. In essence, the belief that you are your mistakes is a false narrative that limits your potential. The truth is that you are a complex, evolving individual with intrinsic value, capable of learning, changing, and growing. Your mistakes are chapters in your story, not the title of your book.